So the film we're going to be reviewing today is Thanks for Sharing, which came out in theaters worldwide, released September 20th, which by the time you're viewing this is probably about 2 weeks ago. It stars Mark Ruffalo, Tim Robbins, Josh Gad, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Alicia Moore, better known as Pink, surprising enough. It basically follows the story of sex addiction and how it's affecting Ruffalo, Robbins, and Gad's characters throughout the film, and then they have the supporting ladies of Pink and Paltrow. Saying I liked the film would be a lie, but saying I didn't like the film would also be a lie. There were definitely parts of it that really needed some work, especially in the writing category. I mean, like I said, it's about sex addiction. They definitely could have gone into a better description of what that entails toward the beginning. It basically starts off with Ruffalo getting his 5-year medallion, which a lot like Alcoholics Anonymous, the medallions they give there. But the thing they don't explain is, what does that mean? Does that mean he went 5 years without having sex, or he went 5 years without having sex outside of a committed relationship? It's a little confusing, and I think they really assumed that their audience knew all about sex addiction and recovery and all of that, which maybe I'm in the minority and everyone else knows about it, but it could have definitely gone with a little bit more explanation. Like I said, the writing especially was a poor point in the movie. One of the scenes is all of a sudden Mark Ruffalo and Gwyneth Paltrow meet at a bug eating party. And when I mean bug eating party, I don't mean that's like code word for something else or anything like that. It literally is they are taking these cricket-like bugs, wrapping them in lettuce and eating them, or putting them on shish kebabs and eating them. Now, I sat there watching it and was like, all right, a bug eating party, that's kind of really weird, so it must play a major point later in the movie, but it was never mentioned again, and never really explained as to how this had anything to do with the rest of the film. So that whole thing could have been taken out or changed. That was probably the biggest downfall of the film, honestly, because it's such a weird thing to have a bug eating party and then never explain it. So it's kind of distracting. I left the theater thinking more about that than the rest of the movie. Writing still, even in dialogue, was very shaky at points. There's one scene where Ruffalo and Gwyneth Paltrow are sitting there and they're going on a bike ride, and all of a sudden she announces she had breast cancer 4 years ago. And I think the face Mark Ruffalo makes in that scene kind of parallels how the audience is feeling. It definitely kind of threw us for a curveball. The only thing it really had to do with the rest of the film is she uses it as leverage later on against him, but it still is definitely something that could have been better led up to. Maybe they're talking about cancer, maybe her breasts are different sizes and that has to do with it, or even bringing it up later would have been better, but the only thing it ever plays is that she uses it as leverage, which she could have had anything. It didn't have to be breast cancer specifically. Then, I mean, the writing was not the best, but the acting in a way made up for it, especially with some parts. With Pink's part, definitely, I don't know if they spent more time on her dialogue or if she played it really well that you didn't really notice any flaws in the dialogue, but she did an excellent job, and I was really surprised because whenever you have movies like Crossroads with Britney Spears or anything like that, where they're taking a pop star and just throwing her into a movie, you're sort of assuming it's just for publicity and more for a marketing technique, but she really was strong with her performance, and I'd definitely like to see her in other movies. She played a really complex character in this and did a really good job, so I feel like maybe there's definitely room for her to go into other genres and do just as well. Mark Ruffalo's character, I like him, and he's one of my favorite male actors, I'd say, ever, so I can't really give him a bad review for this, and he doesn't really deserve one. It was decent. At the beginning, the character needed to be a lot more developed, which they kind of later addressed, but still, he definitely could have used a little bit more. There's one scene, which I'm not going to give away, is a critical point in his character, and you can see it on his face, how it affects him, which I do have to give him props for that. He did a really good job with that. Tim Robbins' character, I just thought was a jerk throughout the entire film, which I assume it's supposed to be. He, spoiler alert, is kind of an abusive father in it, but I just didn't like him at all. It wasn't even just that he was a jerk. It was more that his character really had some major plot holes within their backstory that really could have been addressed. So, I mean, if it really interests you and you're kind of like me and you're like, Mark Ruffalo's in a movie, let's go see it, and you want to go see it in theaters, definitely go pay the money. If you're kind of about it, I would rent it. that's really what my review is going to come down to. Is it's not really worth the $16 it costs to go to the theater. It's much more the $4 you can rent it on demand, or if you want to go to Redbox or something like that and rent it on DVD. I would definitely wait for this one. It's nothing major. Don't even rent it if you don't want to. Like I said, it's weird. It has its points that definitely need addressing, but I mean, overall, 3 out of 5. It's time passing, basically.